So today I spent a really interesting 20 minutes talking to Attila. Um, he's got this incredible company. He's come from a background which is he's a professor, so an academic. He started a business, he's traveled around the world, but he's doing something really special. He's taking the cells, digitizing them, and creating a patient digital twin. It's amazing. I love that. So that means that we can speed up development, speed up our understanding of cells, and so many more things. I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg. So literally, if you can join us, I think you'll learn a lot and hopefully gain a lot from this podcast. Thank you. Today's guest is Attila Csikász-Nagy, who is CEO at Cytocast in Hungary, and they're dedicated to revolutionizing drug discovery and development and precision medicine through a patent-specific digital twin platform. And we're going to be discussing entrepreneurship and leadership. I'm Tony Wood from CEO Collaborative Forum, and let's hear CEO Reflect. So Attila, an incredibly warm welcome to you. Thank you so much. I was just reading your bio. You've done so much. It's crazy.
Thanks, Tony. I'm happy to be here, and it's an honor to participate here.
No, and I'm really excited for our listeners and viewers to find out what your company does, because I think it has the possibility to change our world. So pretty excited. But let's go back a little bit, shall we? Let's think about how hard is it to start up a company straight from an academy like you did?
Actually, this is my second try in a way. First, when I was working in London, in King's College London, then with some friends from Cambridge, we had some ideas of which eventually the university said that we should patent it. And then eventually we turned it into a company that kind of started to work. And then we figured out that it could make some money, but eventually it might not give us a living. But recently I've seen a company doing quite similar business and gaining 20 million investment. So the basic idea might not have been that bad. Mm-hmm. And we organized a conference, and there we created a scientific speed dating event. Where we collected people with different backgrounds and make them sit together, and we profiled them before a little bit. And then it was so much success that they invited us to write a paper about it, which was cited by the Times Higher Education, the Harvard Business Review and such. But then the company we established half a year later when there was no noise about it, and then it was going slow. So then we failed. And the other point, we did not get investors for that one. We were a bit afraid, how to get to deal with investors. And the other problem was that it was not really on our major research lines. So since then, one of my co-founder from that company is already running a company in the UK, which just recently got 7 million investment. So, which is exactly on his research lines. And I also have now my own company, which is also on my research line, which is much closer to what I'm doing on a daily basis. So in that sense, it's not easy, and there are failures. And of course, the other major challenge is that as a scientist, you usually talk in a way that which is much more humble. You say that it might be this way. We believe in this. The observations suggest these things. So that's those type of way to talk. And as an entrepreneur, you have to say, yeah, we're going to change the world, and this will work for sure. So to change these mindsets, that's one of the challenging ones, that how to talk to different people with different language. Not that easy.
You're a professor at the same time as an entrepreneur. And you mentioned one of the issues there, which is you deal with facts, and also you're trying not to overblow things or oversell things. And as an entrepreneur, I'm not saying that we do, but some might over exaggerate the possibilities. What are the biggest challenges apart from that?
Of course, one of the big challenges is time, that how you can fit into your daily schedule to deal with both the university duties and the entrepreneurship duties, and how to deal with the companies. So the biggest challenge is to build the right team around you, both in my laboratory at the university and both at the company. So to have people who I can trust and who know their roles. So I think if I have one skill is I'm good in dedicating jobs and finding the right person for the right job. And I'm lucky I have the right people to deal with this, and they are quite independent. And they come back to me when there is a question, and then we think about those together and try to solve it. It's a bit different type of questions usually which comes from the company than from my research group at the university, but the major goal is always that we have some problem that needs to be resolved, and it's similar mindset. You need to solve problems, and especially I think that our company is really in the seed stage right now. So now it's quite much R&D driven. We are all, of course, we are getting to the market and we have to talk to customers these days as well. So that's especially the main challenge, to start to get into that mindset and try to see that now as a scientist, you have to convince your referees who are other scientists, but now you have to convince, say, in our case, more pharma company leaders who might have been scientists before, but might not even be a scientist. And you still need to be able to translate the complex biological and computational ideas which we deal with into their language and show that you know what you're doing, and to show the vision which you're following and where you would like to reach.
So do you think that being from academia and a professor, and when you're working with your students, do you find that actually having that background helped you as a CEO, or hindered, or what would you say would be the benefits or downsides, I'd say?
Yeah, I think the major benefit is really that, well, in that sense, it really matters which stage you leave from academia. So now, as I'm as a research professor, I have a group, and at the university, actually, I had two groups which were almost 20 people at some point. So in that sense, it's leadership what you will need there as well. So I think some of the leadership skills I already had to achieve already as a scientist, and that could have been translated into the company level. And especially one of the trick is that some of the colleagues in the company are actually PhD students at the university as well. Okay. So they are, cool. I can bug them with two different hats on me.
So you're like double boss. That must be helpful. Oh, that's amazing. And what are the downsides? What are the things that you wish you knew? Because I'm just thinking a lot of our listeners are in academia. I know that from talking to them. And they're thinking about, maybe I'm looking to start a business. What recommendations would you give to them?
In a way, it's a challenge, but if you write a scientific proposal and it fails, it's a bit similar that you start a company and it fails. So it can happen. But if you strongly believe in your proposal and you resubmit and revise, then eventually it will work. And kind of the major challenge, as I've faced in my first company as well, that what you came up with, it could be a great idea, which some people like or many people like, but is there a market for it? So I think that's the biggest question for scientists, that they come up often great ideas, which in principle can change the world, but can they explain it to those people who are willing to pay for it? Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for scientists, to be able to understand that what you're developing here is not a scientific achievement, but a business. So you need to move or translate your advances and your innovation into something that is marketable and where there is a market for it.
So I get that, but how would you, what do they need to do? I'm a great believer in, okay, what's a step they could do? So what's one step that they've got a great paper, they think, you know what, this could change the world. And given that's going to happen, or they believe it's going to happen, what would you say? What's the next step you would recommend they take?
To check who else is doing related things
Okay.
on the market. Who are your business competitors?
Right.
Because if, well, that's I've also heard in some of these mentors and from some of the mentors and accelerators where we participated, that if you do not have competitors, then either there is no market for it because then no one cares about it, or you really came up with something so new that it will change really the world, and this is really happening very rare. So that's it's most often you will bump into something that there is a market, and then you have to see that, okay, what is your unique selling point? So what your innovation brings but no one else can do, and why it will change the whole business system and how you will lead the market or take a large chunk of it, because that's when it's kind of worse to make this step. But if you have this feeling that you are the one who changed the world, but no one listens, then it will be hard to change the
world. Wonderful. That's really good advice. Now, when I was looking at your title, can you help me? What is a computational system biologist? I'd never heard that before. That's a new one on me.
Okay, so in that sense, so computational, it means that it's something to do with computers. So we do use computers, and systems is the large scale level, so biology to understand in a large scale. Mm-hmm. So the simplest explanation, and in fact the company is also doing something like this, is if you think about an airplane simulator, a flight simulator, then that's what you use to test pilots. Now you can get even a pilot degree just by being trained on very advanced simulators. So in a way, what a computational systems biologist is doing is building such simulators of biological systems, of cells, of ecosystems, or different levels of this. The major difference, and what makes it really hard and really challenging, is that we can build an airplane or a Formula One car for a race simulator. And that's why to turn that into a simulator, it's much closer. There's a lot of physics and some other rules which you have to incorporate into your simulator, but at least what are the bits and pieces in the equipment which you try to simulate. In the case of a cell or any biological systems, you have some knowledge, but it's far not complete. And that's why it's always a work. That's why there are these computational systems biologists and experimental systems biologists, or many other molecular biologists who we are working together with. Because this is the part when you do some simulation, which is the representation of your current knowledge. So we put all our knowledge, which we know, into our simulator, and then we see if it really matches what is live. And then the benefit of it, that we can test on it. If we add a new drug, will it really do what we desire it will do? And then we can test with thousands of drugs and select the best one for a given patient. And that's the benefit of having a simulator. Then you don't need to test on each individual some of the things, and it's cheaper, faster, and if the model is correct, then it could be useful as well. That was one of the major saying in systems biologists use, that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So that's the goal of systems biology, to make the useful models.
I love that, because we hear a lot about feedback loops, that if we get a feedback loop, then we can automate, we can speed things up. We're not waiting for other slower mechanisms. So how much has this sped up, or could it sped up development in understanding how cells react to a whole raft of things, pretty much everything? So you just got a cell and you can test it with everything.
Yes, and especially the combination of simulations and the AI methodologies. So all these are speeding up things tremendously. And in a way, now there are some examples where they can develop drugs much faster, in months instead of years or decades.
Yeah.
and to run experiments in silico on the computers could take seconds, minutes, instead of running them for hours or days or weeks or months. And it can, I won't say it replaces what you do, because you need to check eventually, but you have a much wider playground. So you can try all the possible experiments in silico and identify that which will be the experiment that will help me to make the decision that if it's my hypothesis is correct or not.
So if I can simplify it, helps us figure out where to look.
Yes. So in a way, it helps you to identify what is, well, basically, it helps you to identify that if you put there all your knowledge, it shows where your knowledge is missing some pieces.
Nice. I like that. I like that. This must have been quite interesting for you, because you obviously started off in Hungary, spent time in the US, Italy, UK. So leaving Eastern Europe to do science and then coming back to do science and entrepreneurship. What's the story there?
Yeah, so I was doing all my degrees here in Hungary. Then I was a postdoc in the US and such. To leave from the country, of course, there's a usual problem of leaving your family and friends behind. But in principle, there, I was lucky that with this type of knowledge of this bioengineering, computational biology, there was interest. So it's to leave is not that hard. You can find the right places, and if you're lucky, you can be in exciting places. That's why, for instance, when I was living in London, I really liked it. When we had an idea on whatever topic, then I could get the world expert and knock on their door in next day, and that's why it's really a great environment to do science and to meet people and such. Now, after with a bunch of family reasons and such, returning to Hungary, this is mostly the part which I'm missing. But in a way, thanks to COVID and many other things, now you can do most of this online. And now you knock through Zoom Teams on the doors of these people, but you can still pick their brains and discuss with them. And in principle, it was great that when I spent time abroad, I could make those connections, and I have the network that, because I think it still could be hard from Eastern Europe to write to some scientists or entrepreneurs and say, okay, I would like to talk to you. It's much harder. Once you have been out there and met them, it's much easier. Once you know the right people to talk to, or you have the right people to open the doors for you. So in that sense, that was great to spend time there and reach that stage.
I love that. I love the fact that there's something amazing that's happened from COVID. The world is a much smaller place, and we travel because if we need to, rather than having to, which I think is quite nice. But it's always great to meet in person and also meet in groups. Now, I know there's quite a few COCF members here from Hungary. How you feel yourself fitting into the COCF Next Gen program?
Yeah, so this Next Gen program is for the young entrepreneurs and the young innovators. In that sense, I'm not that young with the gray hair. You can guess that. But I'm a young entrepreneur in that sense. And in my heart, I'm young for sure. But I'm still learning how to be a CEO. And in that sense, I think I learn a lot by talking to and learning from various other CEOs, taking part in the challenges which we have there. And for instance, in our company, one of our advisory board members came from this group. So it was really useful. And actually, I got in there because of one of our investors suggested to be there. So it's a nice environment. And it's also nice that I'm in this Next Gen program, so I can see what the young fellows are doing and how they get connected with more senior people. So it's a nice stage to get deeper and deeper into how a CEO is supposed to behave, how to talk to your team, how to lead the way.
Yeah, I think it's more young as in experience. It's in experience or C-level, because a lot of people who are working in C-level have teams bigger than a lot of companies. So it's really good to hear that it's really useful, because it's not only the challenge, but it's also the network and the connection and that experience that they can gain. But also, I think from my point of view, you bring something really unique to COCF, your knowledge, your experience. And I think that's the benefits. Every single person brings something unique. And then as a whole, 2+2 = 5. I think that's the best way to do it. So is there any advice that you would give for entrepreneurs, leaders within your area, within your industry? What advice would you give to those listening right now?
Yeah, as well. I think that one of the major challenges is really that AI is spreading so fast that we don't know how much time we have left to jump ahead and solve the problems which we are trying to solve before it will be solved by a machine learning algorithm coming from who knows who. So I think it's an exciting time, and you have to be quickly responding to changes.
So it's like a race now.
Yeah, a race without seeing who is on the other lane, and it can jump ahead of you anytime. Well, how ChatGPT appeared almost from nowhere, if you look from a general point of view, and then it's changed so many things so quick. So who knows what will be the next big thing like that.
I think that what you're doing is going to change the world, and I really appreciate your time. Attila, thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having me.